Hey guys, Jeff Francoeur here. Thanks for listening to our content and please like and subscribe. Welcome back to Pure Athlete. I'm Jeff Francoeur along with Britt Lee and Brad Williams, and I'm excited about today's guest. This guest today was, guys, I've told you in 12 and a half years, the best hitter I ever played with, one of the smartest ones. Rode me pretty hard, and I'm glad he did at times. But first ballot Hall of Famer, a legendary Atlanta Braves, and a great friend of mine, more importantly. Chipper Jones, thank you for joining us.
All right.
My pleasure, guys. Good to be with y'all today.
Well, before we get going, and we're going to dig into youth sports is exactly what this is about, but kind of let everybody know a little bit about what you're up to with your family and your job.
Well, the family's pretty chaotic right now. We're in the middle of moving, actually downsizing by more than 50%. So if I could turn this camera around to this room over here, it looked like Fred Sanford's living room. It's pretty crazy right now, but yeah. Professionally, I am Major League hitting consultant with the Atlanta Braves. So I only have to go to home games. I don't travel with the team. So it keeps my foot in the door about as much as I want right now. Most important thing for me, having played, 23 years in pro baseball, was to be a good husband and a good father, first and foremost. And the Atlanta Braves have been great at allowing me to, come down and be in uniform, be in the clubhouse, be on the field before games to, get these guys ready to hit each and every night. So, yeah, that's pretty much a rundown of my life as you see it right now, other than golf with you every once in a while.
Yeah, exactly. Before we get to the youth sports question I want to ask, so what is the difference for you kind of now working with, like when me and BMAC came up and you would help us and grind now, there's so much different technology now these days for these hitters. Like, what is the adjustment for you helping this new generation of hitters?
You know me, I'm old school. I'm still going to have the same conversations that I had with you guys. I still want to know what kind of hitter they want to be. I still want to know if they want to hit the ball from foul pole to foul pole and be the toughest out possible, or if they want to stand on the plate and yank. I can help them do both, but I don't want to waste my time, trying to make them, a 300 hitter when all they want to do is be a 230 hitter and hit 40 bombs, So all those same questions still apply. There is so much more information available to these guys right now than when we played. We basically had to do pretty much everything on our own, get in the video room, look at what those guys were doing, on a nightly basis. Now they can walk up to a chalkboard and it's listed there for them. It's got every percentage of every pitch and every count. It's got hot zones. It's got cold zones. It's got the umpire zones where they're hot zones and cold zones. I mean, it really is mind boggling. And at times I feel like maybe there might be a little too much information, kind of that old adage, what is it? Paralysis by analysis.
Yeah.
So you got to walk that fine line. You know me, I like to talk more about the mental part. These guys have the physical part pretty much down, but need a little help from the mental side from time to time.
Chipper, we see these guys in the dugout after an at-bat, and they're on an iPad looking at everything that just happened on the at-bat. Would you have liked that? Would that have helped you a lot? Or would that have been a nuisance?
You want me to answer it for you? Because I feel like I can't know.
No.
You would
just ask Frenchie how many iPads I would have broken by now. I mean, that's one of the things that I don't like. Look, immerse yourself in the game, compete. Watch. While you're on the iPad trying to figure out if that ball was on the corner or not, or if you swung over the top of it or missed it off the end of the bat, you may pick up something that the guy's doing that might tip a pitch for you later on. Somebody might be having a conversation, down at the end of the dugout about, how they got them out. You may learn something from one of your teammates. Yeah, the only time I ever, man, we didn't have iPads. We had to walk all the way up to the video room to see our at bats. The only time I ever did that was when I had a discrepancy with a call, and I went up to Rob Smith, our technician, to see if indeed I was right or the umpire was right. That's the only time I went up there. Otherwise, I was watching, learning, trying to immerse myself in the game.
Yeah, yeah. We'll get back to some of that, but I know you were a big time athlete as a kid. You're not a high school Hall of Famer like me in Georgia, but
yeah, I grew up in Florida. That's where I'm at.
Oh, here we go. No, but think about back, Chip. I always love asking this question. What is your favorite moment, your best sports moment as a kid growing up in youth sports?
Well, as well as I do, growing up in the South, there's nothing that beats, running out onto that football field Friday night. Yeah, I think the last football game I ever played in as a senior, we were playing our rival Bishop Kenny down in Jacksonville, right on the river. It was colder than all get out, and caught 4 touchdowns that night. And just, my coach told me I was like 8 or 9 catches from leading the state in receptions as a senior, and he said, we're going to throw it and throw it and throw it tonight. And we ran the wing tee, so we weren't necessarily a pass first type of offense. So yeah, I caught 12 for I think 150 some and 4 touchdowns. So it was a good way to kind of wind up a good football career. I knew I wasn't going to play it at the next level, but man, there's nothing beat Friday mornings wearing your jersey to school, doing the pep rally during school, and then listening to your favorite music pregame. And then we always ran out onto the field to Lunatic Fringe by Red Ryder. And man, when that whistle started, boy, I got chill bumps right now just thinking about that song. So it was something down there in Jacksonville.
So Chipper, I just finished your book, and it was great, by the way. Super, really transparent and just an amazing read. But can you talk a little bit about your dad? There was the great part about on Saturdays, you guys would watch the game of the week together and then go out back and kind of simulate games. So can you talk about just that and just kind of your dad, kind of his influence on you?
Yeah, well, Dad was a huge Mickey Mantle fan growing up. Had a giant Mickey Mantle wooden bat in his closet it was forbidden fruit for me. If I touched it, I got the belt. So I had to wait until he left to, pick this thing up and see what it was like to swing a man's bat, But yeah, I mean, I think from the time I was 7, I was pretty much, full go as far as switch hitter goes. Maybe not so much when I was in my games in Little League and whatnot, but certainly when we were in the backyard and he was standing 40 feet away with a tennis ball and I had probably a 32-inch piece of PVC pipe, if I was the Dodgers and Reggie Smith or Kenny Landreau or Mike Scioscia came up, I had to hit left-handed, and that was just the way it was. Or if I was the Baltimore Orioles, Eddie Murray came up or Al Pumbrig or somebody like that, I had to hit left-handed. So it was it was understood, and Pops was one that if I was going to win, I was going to earn it. Never let me win. And by the time I was about probably 11 or 12, he had a rough time beating me. So all that stuff started to take root, and I switched it a little bit in Little League when we get up in games, but most of the time whenever I was playing summer ball, whether it was American Legion or Babe Ruth or what have you, I was full time. He said, whatever you do, regular season, high school, and Little League and whatnot, I don't care where what you do, but the scouts are going to come see you in the summertime, and you need to let them know that you have this in your arsenal and you need to continue to work at it. So he was a huge influence, never overbearing. It was always me tugging him down to the park to go hit or take ground balls. But man, when the Joneses went to the ballpark, it was a family affair because I had dad pitching, I had mom and granddad out in the outfield shagging flies and throwing the balls back to the infield. My grandmother sitting in the stands, just so I could get as many swings as I could until my hands blistered up.
What did it look like for you growing up? The dynamic. We talk a lot about parents' involvement and with their kids and stuff. Like, did you play basketball too until a certain age? We know you played football through high school, but what other sports and did you? We always talk about getting burnt out playing baseball. These kids these days playing
Right.
10 months out of the year. How did that dynamic look for you with off time too?
Well, I played every sport that was in season. When school starts, in late August and September, it's football season, man. And the second that ends, it's right to the gym and start shooting hoops. And then once that's over, that pretty much overlapped into baseball season. So, we never stopped. And I was always one that believed, still am to this day, that you learn a different discipline with each sport. Not only that, you're interacting with a different group of kids in each sport, which helps you be, socially become, a chameleon, if you will. I grew up in a predominantly Black Hispanic community, and I hung out with all the fellas. I'd be across the tracks on Sundays playing pickup hoops and playing cards and stuff, but I was accepted by all three communities, and it was playing sports with these kids that made that happen. And yeah, do I think that a lot of kids get burned out by the time they're 13, 14, 15 years old because they're playing, for their school teams, during the season, and they're playing on these travel ball I don't know how parents do it, man. I got a buddy who's, was in Wilmington for the last 5 or 6 days, two separate tournaments for two separate kids. And I'm just like, my kids are going to have a life. My kids are going to play for their school team. They're going to play multiple sports. And in the summertime, we're going to be a family, and we're going to travel as a family together. And we're going to do things that we enjoy doing away from, the sport. And that way, whatever sport they are adamant about, whether it's lacrosse, which I know nothing about, but my 13-year-old started lacrosse this week. So apparently I'm going to be a lacrosse dad here pretty soon. But, if one of them's bread is buttered in baseball, they're not going to play it till the springtime. That's my feeling on the subject.
Chipper, there's a story in the book about kind of you were coming back from a game and a tournament that you guys lost, but you had a pretty good game, and your dad made a comment to your mom about he thought you could be a pretty dang good player. Is that kind of when you had that epiphany that, hey, I can be pretty good at this game? This is something that could take me for a while?
Well, I had it long before that. That was really my coming out party. I don't, if you guys remember, y'all are probably a lot younger than me. So when I was 12,
No, these guys are older than you. Don't give them the benefit of the doubt.
Appreciate that.
when I was 12, Altamont Springs made it to the Little League World Series against Taiwan. That was Jason Varitek. That was a guy named Jerry Thurston, who played professionally with the Padres for a while. Those guys, they had a squad, and we were pretty good as well. We ran up against them a couple times, and they actually beat us to go to the Little League World Series when I was 12. And we lost to them in, I believe, 11 innings. And I hit 3 home runs in that game, all of them to tie, never to put us ahead. And yeah, that was the game that my dad was referring to. And, Pops wasn't much for compliments. coming down the stretch, after games. But that was one game that he really gave me a pat on the back, and for me to hear him say that, like normally he would wait until we got home and they got up into the bedroom to say something like that. For him to say it in front of me really meant a lot, and let me know that against some of the better competition, if not the best competition, certainly in the state of Florida, that I could do that kind of damage was let me know that I was on my way.
I always know that your dad was your favorite coach. We had so many good times. I did personally too, talking with him. But outside of him, who was the best coach you ever played for and why?
Um, the best hitting coach I would say was Don Baylor, and it wasn't necessarily anything that he did with me mechanically. He was the one guy who stuck a foot in my rear end, and I think we all need that from time to time, and I think I mentioned this in the book that, I called home to Dad and I go, man, this is what I need. Like, I went into the cage this morning. It's the first day of spring training. And, I probably hit for 5 or 10 minutes left-handed and didn't hit right-handed. And we were about to stretch in, 7 or 8 minutes. And so I was done. And Don was having none of it, right? He's like, you get your rear end back in here. You're going to hit right-handed before we go out on that field. He asked me my my approach right-handed, and I was like, man, it's my weaker side. They turn me around late in games, and I'm really just trying to be a tough out, singles, doubles, and he was having none of that. He said, you hit third and play third for the best team in the National League. People need to fear you. I don't care if you strike out 100 times. I want you to be aggressive. And at that point in my career, I established myself as a 25 to 30 home run guy, left-handed, but only a handful of homers right-handed. And that year in 1999, I hit 30 left-handed and I hit 15 right-handed. That takes you into a different stratosphere. 30 home runs, that's a lot of homers. That's a great season. 40, 45, that takes you into a completely different realm. And all it really was a change in mindset. And unfortunately, I only got Don for 1 year before he got a managerial job. But man, I missed him just for the standpoint of whenever I needed somebody to put an edge on me, he would do it. And I never had another hitting coach that would do that.
Chipper, let's keep talking about hitting a little bit. We've had Smoltzy and Glav on the show, and they've talked to our audience about pitching development a lot, and we want to talk to you about hitting. So today, obviously in the game, people really value hitting the long ball. Average isn't valued as much. People don't worry about striking out. What would you say to young hitters, to young kids who are watching this in the majors? What should they be focused on in from a hitting development standpoint?
To be the toughest out possible. That's what hitting is all about. You can't score runs if you don't get on base. You can't knock people in if they don't get on base. You have to be the toughest out possible. Everybody always asks me what I'm most proud of numerically about my career, and it's 300, 400, 500. That's as good as it gets. When you're a 300 average hitter, when you're a 400 on base, and you're slugging over 500, you're doing it all. You're being the toughest out possible. If they're not going to throw you any strikes, you got to let the guy behind you, pick you up. There's just certain points when teams aren't going to let you beat them. But I'm not going to throw away an AB because I'm trying to expand the zone so that they don't want me to beat them. So I'd much rather have me at the plate. Trust me. Don't get me wrong. But the fact of the matter is I tried to be the toughest out possible, and that means hitting the ball the other way. Frenchie will tell you most of my homers were the other way into center field. I made that my strength. Leo Mazzoni, every pitcher's meeting
Yep.
was the first thing he always said.
Down and
We're
away.
going to go straight away. We're going to own the fastball down and away. Well, eventually I got to the point where I was like, well, if that's the universal thinking of most pitchers, then I'm going to take that away because I want to hit the fastball. I don't want to hit the other stuff. I want to hit the fastball. And if they're going to throw me that one first pitch, that's why I was a notorious first pitch fastball hitter. I was not going to let you get ahead of me with the straight one, 0-1, because then I know the sliders and changeups are coming, and I hit the fastball a heck of a lot better than I did that other stuff. So, yeah, I would just say try and be the toughest out possible. Not every guy is made that way. Not every guy cares, about my way of thinking. I would have to say this: in all my years of talking to hitters, there's only been one guy that has ever said, Chip, I want to stand on the plate and yank. Frenchie knows him well. It was B-Mac.
Yep.
It was B-Mac. And I said, okay, B-Mac, we're going to stand on top of the plate. We're going to make the outside corner the middle of the plate. Anything outside is truly outside, and we're going to spit on everything in. And he left and hit some homers with the Astros and the Yankees, and then he came back, and the first day of spring training, you know what he said to me? He goes, ask me again. And I go, what kind of hitter do you want to be? He goes, I want to hit ball from foul pole to foul pole. I was like, it's a little late, but we're going to help you out. Right?
I used to tell stories all the time. It'd be so great. We'd be on the team playing, man, and we'd be, having a drink and talking hit, and then Chipper would look at me and B-Mac, why can't y'all just do what I tell you to do? And we're like, dude, we're trying, man. I mean, but Chipper did have a great one. I loved you. You used to make me strive for it every year. Be accounted for 200 runs, whether it's RBIs, runs scored, throwing a guy out, 200 runs. And if you do that, then you're going to be a pretty darn good player. We talked.
Yeah, I think anytime you hit in the middle of the lineup, you better be able to do both. You better be able to drop them in, and back in the day, you could run a little bit, you could steal, you could get into, but like the guys behind me, if I was on first and they hit a ball in the gap, I was scored.
Yeah.
100%. It was that 100 was a big milestone for me each and every year.
I want you to talk to the middle school and high school hitters right now. What is one of the main things they should focus on as they grow? Because, you hear it all the time. You go to a tournament, there's dads and coaches yelling 15 different things at these kids, and you can't do that. I mean, good Lord, your mind doesn't go. What is one thing they should lock in to help them as they continue to grow?
Do whatever you have to do to keep your head and thus your eyes as still as possible. Like, it's hard enough to hit 100 miles an hour with your head completely still. You've got a bunch of moving parts in a swing. You've got a stride. You've got your load. Your stride, your tuck. I mean, your head and your eyes are going to move quite a bit, but if you can limit that as much as possible, I think you're in a good place. I have this conversation with hitters to this day in the Braves clubhouse right now. I'm having it with Michael Harris. I'm having it with Matt Olson. I mean, their strides are so big. They're landing so hard on their front foot and their head's moving forward 6 to 8 inches, and you're making 100, well over 100 miles an hour. And it's hard to catch up with that when there's that much movement. So yeah, the young kids, keep your head as still as possible. Make sure you get separation between your hands and your stride foot. When you have separation between your hands and your stride foot, your head and your eyes will stay as still as possible.
It's one of the main things you taught me. I used to always go to the video and Chipper would show me my head when I was sitting there, and then when I hit, and sometimes it would drop 6-8 inches. It was interesting.
Yeah.
Chipper, I'm guessing that your dad made you a switch hitter because of Mickey Mantle and all that. But as you talk to kids today, I mean, what kids ought to think about switch hitting, and which ones really should avoid it? What's the decision in that?
Uh, quite honestly, I think they all should try it, see if they like it. Obviously, your better athletes are probably going to be the ones that pick it up um, a little faster than other kids. But Frenchie can attest. Those breaking balls coming into you are a lot easier to hit coming in than going away from you. I mean, how many times you strike out on a slider off the
Huh?
off the
What? I didn't hear you. I think we're breaking up.
So, when that ball starts out away from you and is breaking in, you can hone in on it pretty nicely. And
Yeah.
I could imagine facing a Pedro Martinez curveball or a Kevin Brown slider, righty on righty. I can't imagine facing a Randy Johnson lefty on lefty slider. I mean, I would have zero chance either way, So that's the main thing. Yeah, but I mean, I would dabble with everybody. If I was everybody's dad, at some point I would pull them aside and say, "Hey, let's try it." You might you might find that they like it. You might find that they have a better swing. I had a better swing left-handed than I did right-handed, from day one. And once Dad saw that, he's like, "Well, I got to stay on him now because he's going to be a good switcher one day."
All right, we're sitting in Chicago facing Carlos Marmol. All he does is throw sliders to me. And Chipper, I'm walking over the plate, and he goes, "I don't want you to swing the bat." And I'm like, "At all?" And he goes, "Yeah, literally take." And I'm like, "Well, what if I strike out?" And he goes, "Well, you're going to probably strike out anyways if you swing, so just sit there." So I'm like, "All right." And it taught me a great lesson, though, because I did. I went up, and he walked me on 5 pitches. And one of the sliders probably was maybe even a ball that they called a strike. And he said, "See, this is what he thinks of you and what you're going to do." But it did make sense. That was one thing I always said. Chipper was thinking with the game. And you hear me now when I announce. There's one thing I always loved about Chipper and what he said is he was watching the game. And I always said if I could go back, especially now that I'm announcing, good Lord, I feel like I know everything. You know what's coming. You can see the game. But I could have done that too if I would have watched the game at certain times. And that's one thing he did the best at. I mean, he did. He dissected the game. And so I challenge my kids and my team a lot of times, watch what's going on. Even if you only learn one thing, it might help you at some point.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, that's not the only illustration of like putting the bat on your shoulder. Like we were facing Lincecum one time in San Francisco. And so my preparation every day was whoever I was facing, I watched his last 3 starts. I wanted to know where his head was at. Is he 3-0 with a 1? Is he 0-3 with a 6? Is he 0-0 with a 4-5? What's working for him, what's not. All this goes into my game plan each and every day. And in watching Lincecum, he was a high volume pitch guy, all right? Lived on the strikeout. Every 3-2 count, okay? He never threw a strike. Every 3-2 count. So in the hitters meeting out in San Francisco, that's one of the only times I ever spoke up. I go, "Fellas, if you put the bat on your shoulder every 3-2 count, he will be out of the game no later than the 4th inning. I can promise you that." He walked 6 that day. And of 6 of the 7 guys that he went to 3-2 counts on, he walked them 6 out of 7 times.
I was one of those walks. I remember that. I was so proud.
And I'm just like, he was out of the game in the 4th. We had 5 runs on him. We blew him out. And I was like, man, I'm glad that worked. Because, I'm putting y'all's at bats in my hands, but I felt strongly enough about it that if we could, instead of striking out 6 out of those 7 times, we walk 6 out of those 7 times. Now all of a sudden he's got to go through another at bat and throw 5, 6, 10 more pitches, and he had 90 some pitches, 3 1/3, and he's out of there, and we go on to roll.
Chipper, we had on Del Curry here. He's one of the best shooters in NBA history, and we asked him this question. And you're obviously one of the best hitters in MLB history. Are hitters are they born or are they made? Is there a percentage that you would say? I mean, there's obviously you were given a lot of gifts from God, but how would you answer that question?
I think they're born. I really do. I can't give everybody my eyesight. I can't give everybody my baseball IQ or my aptitude. I can't do it. That was just God given. I mean, to be able to see spin out of a pitcher's hand, to be able to pick up pitches better than other guys, you can't account for that. You can sit there and coach them all you want on mechanics and whatnot, but if they're not seeing the ball, you really can't help them, and that's God given. I really feel like it's something you can work to make yourself better at, but I think that the truly great ones, they've been touched, they've been blessed.
It's kind of what Dell said about shooting
Yeah,
as well.
the same thing.
Hey, you talked a second ago about watching Lincecum's tapes. Can you take us through what was your game day routine from time you got up in the morning to playing at night?
Normally, I would wake up about noon after a night game. I would basically give mama and the babies a hug and a kiss, and I'd come to the ballpark. When I got to the ballpark, I'd throw on my 4 pairs of sliders and my sleeveless T-shirt, and I go get something to eat. Then I go into the trainer's room, whatever needed to be worked on, I'd get worked on. After that, it was
don't forget solitaire. Don't forget solitaire.
I won't forget solitaire, Frenchie. I'd go into the video room and get my video stuff out of the way, just because I knew other guys were going to be in there, and it was such tight quarters. So get my homework done. And then, after that, it was I'd grab a dip and do solitaire or the USA Today crossword, just kind of something to, I don't know, just kind of soothe the soul, I guess you could say. At that point, head out to BP and take my ground balls, get my my BP work in. After that, it was come in, get a snack, normally 4 chocolate chip cookies and a Powerade.
Yeah.
That was my pregame snack for most days. Crazy as it sounds, but yeah. And then I would, get dressed. I'd probably take, I don't know, 15, 20 swings in the cage, soft toss right before the game, and then head down and get busy.
Chip, finishing up here, we talk about hitters and the mental side of the game and different things that you like to talk about. Speak to these young hitters real quick that are listening, even the parents. The worst thing in baseball is a slump. And I mean, it can drive you crazy. It keeps you up at night. How did you try to get yourself out of slumps at time? What can these kids do to get themselves going besides hitting 1,000 balls into a cage thinking that that's going to do it?
Well, that helps. It's really twofold for me. One is the tee never lied to me. In all my life, it never lied to me. It always told me what was wrong. If you're casting and coming out and around the baseball, tee's going to tell you. If you're looping to the baseball, he's going to tell you. And, I knew what my base swing was. And if I could take that ball off the tee and hit it through the middle of the cage all the way down at the end, then I knew I was right. All right. And so your mechanics have to be spot on. And secondly, you got to be confident. If you're walking to the plate and Mariano Rivera is on the mound and you're thinking to yourself, I don't have a chance in Hades of getting a hit. Guess what? You ain't getting a hit. But if you walk up to that plate and you look out there and you say, you throw that ball over this plate, I'm going to whack it. Chances go up exponentially. So a lot of it is, just getting away from the self-doubt, going up there and saying, man, you throw this over the plate, I'm going to whack it. And I think having done your homework pregame, which was so very important, it's just like taking a test. Frenchie, you know damn well, if you're walking into a final exam and you haven't studied, that you're not going to do well.
Yep.
All right. But if you know the material pre-test and you walk in there, I guarantee you're confident that you're going to make an A or at least pass in your case. But my point is, I've done my homework. I've done my homework. I know what you're going to throw when the rubber meets the road, and I'm going to be waiting on it, and I'm going to whack it. So a lot of it's, confidence and preparation.
Yeah.
So Chipper, who are 2 or 3 guys today that kids should watch that have the right approach when they get up to a plate?
Man, I haven't watched much other than the Braves. You got to point at the best in the game, right? I mean, I'm around Ronald Acuna Jr. all the time. He works, he prepares, and you're seeing the benefits. He's probably taken it to the nth degree this year as opposed to years past, but I mean, he is on it. Mike Trout doesn't ascend to where he has in the game today without preparation and the right approach. I mean, he hits righties, he hits lefties, it just doesn't matter. One guy I like watching is a guy like Corey Seager, of similar stature to me, big, shortstop coming up, strictly a left-handed hitter, but man, it really doesn't matter whether it's righty or lefty. He just always seems to be on every single pitch, and he absolutely kills the Braves. So he's one guy that I enjoy watching. That's just to name a few.
Final 2 questions here, Chip. We'll let you go. Thursday night, I think we're doing a broadcast maybe together. Last I checked, is it going to go off the rails? You're only doing it for one day. My question is, am I going to have a job on Friday to show up and call the Braves game?
You're the point guy, so you're the one who has to keep everything on the rails. The problem is going to be, it's going to be Smoltz.
Exactly.
I mean, Smoltz goes off on tangents like nobody's business. I mean, I'll probably, of the 4, believe it or not, because Glav is, you and Glav are kind of partners and, work well together, I will probably be the least talkative of the bunch. When there's 4 guys in the booth, even 3 guys in the booth, there's always one guy that's just like down there at the end. So just make sure I have my drink in front of me, because you want hydrated, Chipper, as opposed to dehydrated.
100%. Oh, God. Well, thanks for joining us. We want one more question from you, man, and we'll let you go. But what I think we always talk about athletes on here. We talk about coaches, but we talk about parents a lot. And what are a couple things that your mom and dad did for you growing up that you try to instill in your kids to give them the best opportunity?
Yeah, mom was the I got I guess you can say swagger or cockiness. I got it from mom. Like, my mom is a professional equestrian, and I used to watch her ride into the ring, and it was just like everybody stopped what they were doing. It was like Mark McGuire taking batting practice. Everybody stopped just to watch her, and she just walked around with this aura. It wasn't outwardly cocky or condescending. It was just, I'm better than you. And she instilled in me early on, when I walk out on that field, I may not be, but you think that you're the best player on that field. May not be. There's many times I haven't been the best player on the field, but when I walk up to that plate, there is not a dude in that stadium that I want walking up to that plate more than me. And having that kind of mindset really, really goes a long way, especially when God gave me the the assets that he gave
Yeah.
me. On top of that, you grow up with a baseball dad who is a public school teacher for 30 years, coached high school baseball for 30 years, coached college baseball for 10 years. You throw that mindset and that background with the fundamentals of the game, and I am the finished product, and I not many people have that kind of balance in their life, and mom was always the one that would kind of nudge me on the way out of the ballpark and go, nice game, and dad never said that. Dad was always, why didn't you run hard down the first base on that pop-up? I mean, people are watching, I mean, the typical freaking dad who knows that there are people there watching.
Yeah.
So he was always striving for me to get better. I love him very much. Happy Mother's and Father's Days to all the parents out there, especially mine. They've been married 51 years
Wow.
today. No, 52 years today, actually.
Well,
So
don't forget to call him.
What a great shot. Thanks for reminding me. I will hang up and call him.
Well, Chipper, man, we can't thank you enough, man. We
thanks so
appreciate
much.
you being on here. Much better than Glavin and Smoltzy, so we'll let them know on
Definitely.
Thursday.
All right, buddy. We'll see you down at the stadium later on. Y'all be good.
Thanks,
Enjoy.
Chipper. Hey, guys, Jeff Francoeur here. Thanks for checking out Pure Athlete, and subscribe to our channel on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you go to listen to our podcast.